SMO's filmed before a live studio audience.
Good day, it's the Redneck Preppy, and today I'm going to examine and hopefully offer an answer to a question that I get from a lot of people looking into getting into reloading. Namely, is it worth reloading? I generally interpret that question to mean, do you save money reloading? And my answer to that is always a clear and definitive, I don't know, depends. Because it does depend on several factors, which I'll get into today. Now, before I go down the rabbit hole of numbers that I'm going to be subjecting you to, a few notes. One, all prices are in US dollars. And the prices that I'm using today are those that we would be paying in normal pandemic or non-pandemic induced shortages or panic buying. I believe that at some point, prices are going to return to normal. As always, you can probably find individual components cheaper than I have them here. If you scour the web or a local gun store. I predicated this video on some average person going to Cabela's, which is where I found a lot of the components that I'm going to be referencing today to begin their journey. I also assumed that they would be buying name brand stuff. Now, there's some stuff like bullets, for example, that can be purchased in bulk and that would achieve some savings per round. I opted for name brand bullets like Hornady. Finally, today, I am only looking at rifle rounds. I don't personally reload pistol, so I don't have a lot of experience in that. The math is the same. You can figure it out for yourself whether it's worth it, but I didn't touch that today. So with that out of the way, we're going to look at two rounds which are commonly reloaded, and that is .223 Remington and .30-06 Springfield, and see what the cost outcomes are for both of them. Now, obviously, two cartridges aren't an exhaustive look at this, but I, based on my experience, think they're going to fairly represent both the intermediate and full power cartridges that people tend to reload. All right, first of all, let's look at .223 Remington. Now, as you can see by the chart that is currently on your screen, I'm going to assume that we get 6 reloads out of a piece of brass. That may be optimistic or it may be a little pessimistic, but I'm just going to go with 6 just to make it easy, because I find that people usually get 5 to 8 reloads out of a cartridge if they don't anneal. And I'm going to also assume that people aren't going to jump in straight into annealing their brass. So the cost per unit, brass is going to cost about 35 cents a case. The bullet will cost about 17 cents per bullet, and that's a 55 grain bullet from a Hornady full metal jacket. Powder, we're going to be using BLC2, and we're going to use BLC2 for both the .223 and the .30-06 just to make things simple. I'm going to assume that you're going to use a 25 grain load. When it came to .223, I used 26.2 grains of Varget, so I don't think 25 is out of reason, and that's going to cost you about 10 cents, and the primers, they cost about 5 cents a pop. So that comes to a total of about 67 cents per round when you reload .223 fresh using a brand new piece of brass. Now going forward, reloads 2 to 6, as you can see, there is no cost for brass because you're reusing that brass. So your cost per round immediately drops to 32 cents per round. Now, assuming 6 reloads, as I said, that means on average, including the cost of the brass, amortized, if you want to be all fancy spoken guy, it's going to cost you on average 38 cents to reload a round of .223 Remington. Now, how much is it going to cost you to buy factory? That depends, of course, if you buy in bulk or you buy, the cheapest you can possibly find. My cost might be a little out to lunch, but I estimate that it will cost you approximately 40 cents per round to buy it. So that means you're going to be saving 2 cents per each round. Now, one thing that I should note is that you may never have to pay for 223 Remington brass. Even in Canada, at least before the AR-15 was banned earlier this year, supplying yourself with once-fired brass was as easy as just bending down at your local range and picking it up. I can only imagine it's even easier in the United States, where everyone shoots an AR-15. So, next up is the 30-06 Springfield. Again, each individual component is generally from the same manufacturer. I used Hornady bullets, Winchester primers, BLC2 as the powder. The only difference is this time I used Winchester brass because it was a bit cheaper than Hornady. So, looking at 30-06, you will see the brass costs approximately 80 cents each. The bullet is 31 cents. It is larger. I'm using a 180 grain bullet this time. We are assuming 46 grains of powder, which is actually what I use for my 30-06 loads. So that's about 18 cents. And once again, your primer is approximately 5 cents per round. That gives you a total of $1.34, which is actually more expensive than a factory load, but hold on now. Again, assuming 6 reloads out of that brass, which I think is fairly reasonable, you immediately get rid of the brass cost, and that your cost then drops to 54 cents per round. Once again, averaging your cost over 6 loads, you are paying approximately 67 cents per round to reload 30-06. Given that a factory round costs about $1 each, that means you're saving now 33 cents per load. That is pretty good. So, our journey isn't quite complete, however, as we actually need something to reload with. So we're going to go with the all-in-one kit to keep the price as low as possible for a reloader. We're going to use the Lee Breech Lock Challenger kit, which has pretty much everything that you need in order to reload ammunition. And we're also going to opt for Lee dies for each cartridge. Now, I know some of you are going to say that it's unrealistic to expect someone to reload large quantities of 223 Remington on a single stage press. A lot of people use turret presses for that. But I know, having done it, that you can actually crank out nearly 2,000 rounds of 223 Remington on that press, because I did it in 1 week. It's not fun, but it can be done. So let's look at our next chart, which offers the break-even points for each round. So the press costs $169.99 at Cabela's. Again, you might be able to find it cheaper somewhere else. Who knows? But I just went with Cabela's because somebody's getting into reloading. They're probably going to go to one place, get everything. The dies are $41.98. Again, those are probably cheaper at a gun store, but given that I couldn't find them in stock at most places I look, I just opted for Lee's MSRP on those. That gives you a total cost of $211.97 for equipment. To break even, given that we're saving 2 cents a round on 223, it will take you 10,598 rounds in order to cover the cost of the equipment. That's a lot, or it may seem like a lot. For 30-06, it's a little more reasonable. It will take you 642 rounds to break even based on a savings of 33 cents a round. Now, the keeners among you have probably noticed that I haven't factored in ongoing input costs of powder, primer, and bullets into this. Today we're just keeping it simple, just to see how quickly our savings are going to pay for the equipment. So now, assuming that you fire 200 rounds a month of 223 Remington, which is probably a little low for that caliber, it would take you about 53 months to break even on equipment costs. Obviously, the more you shoot, the more you reload, the faster that you're going to break even. For 30-06, it's just over 3 months. I think 3.2 months is what the calculation showed to do the same. Now, I think you're going to find that true for most full power rounds, that the savings are more significant for those of intermediate rounds. That's why I stopped reloading 223 Remington and never bothered with 7.62 by 39 millimeter. The savings just weren't significant enough. There's also another cost that you're going to have to figure out on your own, and it's different for each of us, and that's how much do you value your time. Reloading can be a fairly labor-intensive process, particularly case prep, so if time is limited for you, you're going to need to factor that in as a cost as well. Another potential issue that you're going to need to factor in is if you succumb to gadgetitis, or you start to upgrade individual reloading equipment because you don't like some of the things in the all-in-one kit. That happened to me. I used that Lee Breech Lock Challenger kit for a couple of years, and over those years, the only thing I had left after probably 4 years was the powder thrower and the press itself. Pretty much everything else I got rid of and upgraded. Every time you buy something, you have to further push off that break-even point. So, of course, that equipment could also help you reload faster, so that's a decision that you have to make on your own. So to answer the question posed at the beginning of this video, is reloading worth it on a cost savings basis? Probably to some extent or another, most likely when it comes to full power rounds or ammunition that is extremely expensive or just impossible to find. Now, all that said, I don't believe that you should look just at cost savings as the only variable when you're trying to decide whether you want to get into reloading. I think there's a few other reasons that you might want to do so, which are separate from cost. The first is the potential to create ammunition which is specifically tuned to your rifle, thereby giving you even more accurate results that you would obtain from commercially produced ammunition. That's the reason why a lot of people get into reloading. Looking for the challenge of maximizing what both they and their rifle are capable of. The second is to produce ammunition that isn't commercially available or expensive. I reload several calibers like 5.77 450 and 11mm Mauser that isn't being produced either on a significant scale or at all. I also produce ammunition like 6.5 Jap, which is only made in limited quantities by companies like Norma, and it is very expensive. Think Canadian $70 for 20 rounds, so a little over $3.25 per round. That's something that I can produce for $1 a round. So there's some savings there as well, but I'm also getting ammunition that would be hard to find. Another reason to get into reloading is just simply as a hobby. Reloading teaches a lot of skills, and it can fill up a great deal of time, if that's something that you're looking for. Something particularly useful to us who live in winter climes and maybe can't shoot all year round, or we have to pick our spots in between snowstorms before we can get to the range. Another good reason is self-sufficiency. The last few years of panic buying and hoarding has made common calibers difficult to find. 9mm is a good one. 223 Remington, everyone's buying that up as fast as possible. If you can reload, you can make your own anytime if you made sure to stock up on the components. So do that. And finally, you're going to be able to shoot more. Any savings that you see, you can pour it right back into reloading more ammunition. So ultimately, you may not save any money, but you're going to be able to shoot more for that same money. So that's not an exhaustive list, but those are a few reasons why you may want to get into reloading past whatever cost savings that you may see. At the end of the day, though, reloading is a great activity with a lot of benefits, but it isn't for everyone. I'll be honest there. If you aren't a high-volume shooter, price-sensitive, or you're just happy with the accuracy of factory ammunition, perhaps reloading isn't something that you want to pursue. But if any of those aren't true, you might want to look into it. Do your research and decide for yourself. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned something from it. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. If you liked or didn't like the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, thumbs down. And finally, if you want to see more of this sort of thing, you can subscribe to the channel, and I would greatly appreciate that. Finally, in the description below, you'll find links to my various social media platforms, and you can follow me there if you'd like. At any rate, I hope you have a great day, and may all of your shots ring true. See ya.
Audio